Good afternoon, Dr. Gressick. This is my post for blog 3. For the physical aspects of my classroom in the future and following the prompt there, I try not to think too outside the box, but I certainly want to use smart boards if possible, videos heavily, and visuals with a purpose, as well as open discussion to engage students. Um, Personally, it seemed a lot easier to pay attention when the teacher was engaged with their subject matter. You could tell they cared about their subject matter and then they presented it in that way, oftentimes narratively, as Dirksen talks about storytelling being a way to engage the elephant. And the elephant versus rider analogy made in the book I'll reference a lot through this vlog. Um, Dirksen also says that elephants are social creatures, and I believe that we are wired for community, and I think that will be an integral part of my classroom philosophy and practice. Knowing that it's also a way to engage students on the deepest level possible, not only grasping their intellectual minds, but also their primal needs. Is a great comfort to me because I've always believed we're wired for community, and so to bring that into my classroom and help people and use it to help people pay attention more would be great. Um, Again, talking about how, in my own experience, teachers who taught their subjects narratively or using stories was most engaging. I do believe too that narrative and community can kind of intertwine in a way when even lectures that are purely informational that students wouldn't have a background in can be handled conversationally. Students need to be made comfortable in each classroom environment, and in my classroom I do hope to use very open discussion even when talking about new subjects for students. I want them to be able to ask questions and engage, so I'll have my outline of standards or anything they need to cover during any lesson. Um, but I do want students' interests and students' questions to really form the class period for the day. I won't hesitate to veer off a bit as long as it's relevant questions to the topic, because that will facilitate more authentic learning. Another thing, talking about engaging the elephant, it talks about surprising the elephant, and with English being my content area, um, I think it'd be greatly effective to kind of surprise the elephant using perspectives that are not their own. Um, Dirksen states that surprise isn't necessarily always a jump scare. It's an encounter with a viewpoint that's not one's own. I grew up in a high school that was predominantly white, and most people there were Protestant Christians. And coming here to college, it was a very big shock for me to realize that even the religious makeup of this area, the political makeup of this area is very, very different. And I've grown a lot after encountering that. So hopefully, with respect to helping the school reflect its own community, I can bring some of that with me, not to deter students from their own beliefs, but help them grow and refine them. Furthermore, when is it a challenge to pay attention? It is when you do have to engage that willpower and drag that elephant along. As Dirksen states, things become boring, and too much repetition, can be a bad thing. I think I made the blog yesterday for blog 2, talking about how repetition can be good for memory, and I stand by that. But repetition maybe can be handled in a way where there's a bell work every day. But when you come into class, there's a slightly different assignment each day. I've been in classes where, vocab lessons would be given, and it'd be 5 minutes spent on each slide of the PowerPoint, on each word, all the time, for the entire 70, 80-minute class period. And that simply was just boring, and it was very difficult. And the other time for me personally it was difficult to pay attention was when it was busy work, when there was no application, when there was no real purpose to the work. Why would I pay attention? Much more challenging there. But I am grateful to learn about the elephant rider analogy here, and how I can use that in my future class in order to engage students better, and I do plan to do so. So happy grading, and thanks for listening to this blog.